Good evening. Welcome to this special programme on one of the most moving days in London's long history.
Tonight we report on how Londoners said farewell to Diana, Princess of Wales.
It's been, of course, a momentous day for the whole nation, but also a day for London and its people to pay tribute to one we saw as our own. From Sloane Square to suburbia, from palace to cardboard city, they proclaimed the people's princess.
The capital has never witnessed such scenes. 1 million people in central London, and tens of thousands still here, still paying their last respects. Christopher Peacock is at Diana's London home, Kensington Palace. Chris.
It's 9 hours now since the body of Princess Diana was borne on a gun carriage from her home at Kensington Palace. But still, it seems, the mourning continues. The thousands of people in London show no signs of wanting to leave. The condolence books have now been reopened again at Kensington Palace, and people are filing by to record their messages. This has been an extraordinary day, a day that seems to have no end. First light on the streets of London. People are waking up at the beginning of what will be a momentous day. Londoners who for days and nights have kept vigil, waiting for the funeral of Princess Diana. There have been 7 days of mourning, 7 days since that fateful Sunday and news of that terrible crash. Only today will the reality dawn that London has lost its princess. The streets of London stained with tears for the capital's last farewell to their princess, the woman they so closely identified with because, like so many Londoners, Diana wore her heart on her sleeve. They felt she cared about them.
It's so sad. She was so young. She should have had a longer life. And it's a shame she didn't know just how many people loved her while she was alive.
Down Kensington Palace Yard came the gun carriage bearing Diana's body. This her final journey, but one that she'd made in life so many times before. Londoners were used to seeing her here, leaving her home to go shopping, to visit a health club, attending an engagement, or even off to a difficult meeting at the palace.
I couldn't believe it. Today, I suppose you really do believe it. Up till now, you sometimes think it's a dream, but today you saw her go past, and that's it.
Today, in death, all things were changed for the girl who came from nowhere, the Pimlico nursery nanny who became a princess and bewitched a nation.
I think that people realise more now because the coffee's gone by and that, but I think still they're going to find it very hard to believe because she was so young.
PC Dave Beavis from Hayes in Middlesex was on duty for Princess Diana's wedding 16 years ago. Today he wanted to be out of uniform, one of the crowd, to say his own goodbye.
I was in Kensington for many years, and I know when she was first courting Prince Charles, when she lived in Coleherne Court, was on duty during the royal wedding in '81, and yeah, it's a tremendous loss. Such a lovely person, so kind and generous.
Everyone's thoughts were also with Prince William and Prince Harry, and the courage it must have taken to follow their mother's coffin on the last sad mile to the Abbey. They were caught up in a great outpouring of national grief, the like of which had never been seen before in London. But for the two princes, this was always going to be a heart-achingly personal time.
It's extremely sad, very much so for me, because I've recently become a mother myself. I've just got a young boy that's 4 months old, and it just made me realise how precious life is to us all, that at any one day it can just all be taken away from us.
So many thousands of people in the capital, people who, in a technological age of mass communication, could have stayed at home and watched on television, but felt they had to be here.
And it never be forgotten. Never. Always be in my heart, and I think in everybody else's heart.
Finding a corner to mourn, a space in the crowd, the tears flowed too easily for a princess who was no stranger herself to a life full of emotional upheaval. In her short life, Princess Diana walked with kings and queens and princes and presidents, but she did it in her own particular style. Sometimes we could be irritated, even exasperated by her. Above all, she was vulnerable. That meant people could identify with her.
She was only young and she helped a lot of people, so it's good that we came here and showed her that we cared for her.
So many people cared for Diana. That was the abiding image from today's ceremony. The silence was palpable as the cortege reached Westminster Abbey, a defining moment for this nation and also for the people of London. I suspect this is the kind of day when everyone will always remember where they were and what they were thinking, their thoughts as the coffin bearing the body of Princess Diana passed by. And in years to come, the memories may fade, but I suspect they will never go away. Anna Maria.
Thank you, Christopher.
A short distance from Kensington Palace, 60,000 people packed Hyde Park to watch the funeral on 2 giant screens. Many camped out overnight to secure a good position. Many more came by tube, by train and by bus to join the ranks of massed emotion this morning.
Waking up in Hyde Park to a day they would never forget. Some were well prepared for the night, others just slept in the open.
Very cold and quite damp, but I think it was worth it, wasn't
Definitely
it?
worth it, yeah.
Yeah.
And others who couldn't sleep say they experienced a unique atmosphere as they waited together for the sun to rise.
I mean, it was so quiet. And you see that many people and you expect to hear quite a lot of noise and you didn't at all.
I don't think it was a time for general chat. It was just a time of knowing that we were all here for the same reason and just waiting.
It's a communal feeling, and it's not too sombre. It probably will be later on.
And at just after 9, when the giant screens came on to show Diana's funeral cortege on the move, the mood changed. With the route of the funeral procession only 5 minutes walk away, many then left the television broadcast behind to join the thousands heading for Hyde Park's South Carriage Drive. The view from here may not have been as clear, but it carried a stronger message.
What are they doing?
Well, I couldn't believe that she had really gone, so this has sort of made me realise that she has.
It's just, excuse me. Of course. Just something we wanted to do.
Now tens of thousands from the route joined those returning to the park. Police estimate at least 60,000 people gathered in front of the giant screens. But why come here? Why not just stay at home and watch television? Above all, it's for the sense of community, the experience of mourning together. And together they stood to hear Elton John's song.
Candle in the wind, never fading with the sunset when the rain set in.
And the applause here was nothing compared to the emotional reception for Earl Spencer's personal tribute to his sister.
Of all the ironies about Diana, perhaps the greatest was this. A girl given the name of the ancient goddess of hunting was, in the end, the most hunted person of the modern age.
Press did hound an awful lot. Hopefully the world in general will stop and think twice about people's private lives, because they are precisely that, private lives.
The day was particularly poignant for a couple from Cheshunt in Hertfordshire, whose son Gavin met the princess in Covent Garden 4 years ago. She inspired him to pursue a career as an opera singer.
He was performing in one of her charity concerts that she was a sponsor of. It was one of the most fantastic evenings of our life. And we just felt we just had to be here, you know.
We all felt impelled to come into London.
We wanted to be part of the service.
To be part of the service. It wasn't good enough to stay at home.
Tonight, Hyde Park is returning to normal. It's likely many Londoners who were here will take much longer to recover.
After the funeral, the silence. A full minute's pause while the capital collected its thoughts. It was almost universally respected. This is how it looked across London.
muffled bells of Westminster Abbey breaking that minute's silence. And with that, the cortege prepared to move on through North London to Diana's last resting place in Northamptonshire.
It was the turn of London's suburbia to say farewell. Amid amazing scenes, thousands showered the hearse with bouquets, decking the black car with a colourful sea of flowers.
Early this morning, along the route the cortege would take, suburban London was silent. But behind every net curtain, the picture was the same. Speechless parents and uncharacteristically motionless children, eyes fixed on the television.
The soldiers, in their bearskins, will shortly perform the most difficult task of their lives.
A few doors down, a mum, divorced like Diana, with her 2 girls of William and Harry's ages. Both families are a minute's walk from the Hendon Way, where Diana will pass on her way to the M1 and Althorp, and where, as the morning went on, the tributes grew.
We all liked Diana, we loved her, and we want to miss her very, very much.
How are you going to spend your day today?
We're going to queue up on the Hendon Way, pay our respects.
I think she was just a lovely lady, very nice person.
In the Titheridge household, 2 boys, a blonde and a redhead like William and Harry, who can only try to imagine either being in the public gaze or worse, losing their mother.
Your heart goes out to the boys. You know, we have to get up and go out the room every now and again, otherwise we're just going to be in tears with it.
Because you have boys of your own.
You look at them and you realise how grateful you are. You really do. It's just tragic, isn't it? You take life for granted here today and just take it for granted.
Kerry, can you imagine what it's like to be Harry or William today?
Well, I feel very sorry for him and like, what's happened, and I'm very sorry for him.
Barbara can't help but identify with Diana.
She was in the same situation as myself, being divorced and with 2 children. It's more you feel for the children today. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine what it would be like for my children if anything should happen to me, touch wood.
As the service at Westminster finished, the families joined the streams of neighbours in Cricklewood who made their way, grasping flowers, to the dual carriageway to wait. Amazingly, the people were allowed to line the route of the cortege without barriers. Naturally, they gradually craned forward to throw flowers. The hearse and accompanying limousine became smothered with blossom, and the route narrowed and slowed. At 15 or 20 miles an hour, they passed through St John's Wood, and approaching the Hendon Way, there was barely room to pass, each family with its own thoughts. In just a matter of seconds, she was gone, and I think the abiding memory for most of the people here today is not so much a heroine, more just a mother who died too young for her 2 sons. For many others, the last ever glimpse of Diana will be as the cortege was forced to stop at the beginning of the M1. The driver was blinded by the flowers piled on his windscreen. From there, straight on to her first and last home, Althorp.
Well, among the many well-known friends of the Princess at today's funeral was Lord Attenborough. He encouraged her to back the anti-landmines campaign and coached her in public speaking. Just 3 months ago, he was with her at the opening of a new centre at a university in the Midlands. And Lord Attenborough joins me now. What effect did today's funeral have on you?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer, still really, because see, I loved her very much, and I'd known her for 15 years or so. And so, inevitably, and particularly seeing these extraordinary pictures that you've just been showing, it was deeply moving. And I want to mourn, and I want to grieve, and obviously because I loved her and found her the most enchanting young woman, but also for everything that she stood for. I mean, I think the most moving moment actually in the entire service, which was exquisitely adjudged, having the great traditional hymns, having 2 beautiful pieces of poetry read by the 2 sisters, the Prime Minister reading Faith, Hope and Charity, and Elton, of course. Devastating. And then this extraordinary speech, courageous, outspoken, really very tough speech in a way, but deeply emotional speech by...
And a quite remarkable reaction to it.
I mean, Alistair, I was sitting next where Elton was sitting, the end of the nave, just before you went through to the final part of the Abbey. And his speech came to an end, and he remained standing, and then he went down the steps, and he went down the steps, and it was still silent in the Abbey, and we heard, we didn't quite know what had happened. Outside, people began to applaud this speech, and it came like a sort of forest fire, up to the crowds outside the Abbey, down the nave of the Abbey, until the whole of Westminster Abbey was applauding at a funeral an oration that had been given. And of course it was applauded because it spoke so much as to what so many people felt, and the poignancy being that perhaps this funeral as such, and the manner in which it was conducted, and the fact that the Queen spoke on the night before, all that came really from the people, came from their desire desperately to show that they so admired and loved what she did and what she stood for. And they transformed this service into something unique.
But within that speech, that tribute, there was a very pointed moment when he said, "We are her blood family. We'll guarantee that the boys are brought up as she had wanted, respecting the royal status, yes, but keeping them true to her vision."
Yes.
A warning to the royal family there?
Oh, I don't know about a warning, but I do think, I mean, the Queen, didn't she, in her speech said she admired and respected what she stood for. But you see, somebody was saying, I can't remember who it was, this shouldn't have been said on this occasion. I totally disagree. It was absolutely the right occasion. We were mourning her life. And if you went to her house, if you went to Kensington Palace, there were pictures all over the place, but 90% of them were the boys, with the boys or just the boys. That was the most... If you asked her to do something, yes, of course I will. I'd love it. Now, let me see, when's term time? When's holiday, etc.? Nothing must impinge upon her arrangement with the boys. She was determined that they should not live the secluded life that the establishment for years now have insisted as far as the royal family is concerned. She wanted them to see real life. She wanted to see the helpless, the homeless, the people who hadn't got a chance, the people who hadn't got a voice. And this relentless pressure of her fame, she was aware of the pressure and the pain, and she turned it into speaking not for the easily recognizable charitable organizations, great though they be. Nobody touched a boy with AIDS. Nobody had touched a child who was a leper. Nobody had gone to drug centers and homeless centers and in the way that she did, in the form that she did. And nobody, even though we discussed together the danger, the political danger of backing this anti-landmine scheme, she felt that it was absolutely right. She was determined to make that statement. And I think that demonstrates a woman of phenomenal courage, not, as everybody says, a great intellectual, but a woman with an instinct, an intuition, which was greater than intelligence, or in fact it was its own intelligence. She knew what people wanted. She knew what people's priorities were, and she knew what people cared about. And the compassion that she demonstrated is the result in these pictures.
Dickie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alistair.
Today's funeral was, above all else, a people's funeral for the people's princess. A day when scores of ordinary Londoners from different backgrounds came together to show their grief. We followed one family from Battersea on their own personal journey.
This has been a day of unity, for the nation, for the capital, and for families. Whilst royalty gathered at Buckingham Palace, Londoners found togetherness on the streets. For this family from Battersea, it was a pilgrimage to pay their respects to a princess. Michael Donker and his sister Nana Kessie had both met Diana. Now with those close to them, they were here to say goodbye. And it didn't matter that the roads around Westminster Abbey were packed when they arrived. Determination to witness the funeral procession drove them onwards to Horse Guards Parade, where surprisingly crowds were light.
I still can't believe it yet, but obviously, hopefully, maybe when I see it, when I just see the coffin, maybe I'll realise maybe she's gone.
Don't know I'm going to feel when it comes, but a bit nervous.
Nana, what did you think when you saw it?
I tell you, I wish this day didn't have to come. I wish it didn't have to come. I can't believe it.
God bless her.
I can't believe it.
As the cortege passed, the same emotions were felt by all around. And even the youngest member of the family understands the significance of the day.
Where is Diana gone?
To heaven.
In a break with convention, there were fewer places in the Abbey for the great and good, more for representatives of the good causes supported by the Princess. Among them, nurses from the Royal Marsden Hospital in Chelsea.
Diana did so much to ease the suffering of the sick. Today, those who devote their lives to helping others were able to pay their last tribute to her extraordinary work. Although the reality of death is something to which these nurses have become accustomed, they knew this would be an intensely difficult and distressing day.
I imagine it's going to be extremely emotional out there today, although having heard reports last night how quiet it's all been as well, I think the air's just going to be charged with all this silent emotion, which is going to be quite overwhelming.
Flowers from Prince Charles and Diana's sons, William and Harry, a recognition of the work she did for the hospital.
A very warm and genuine person who was extremely friendly and treated all the patients that she met as individuals. It always felt as if she'd come to see them in particular.
2 hours on and they took their place in the funeral procession. 5 of 500 representatives of good causes making their dignified way up the Mall behind Diana's coffin before attending the service. An honour, but also something of an ordeal.
The only sounds you could actually hear was people sort of crying and sobbing, and there were just flowers strewn all over the road where people had obviously thrown them as the coffin went past.
Earl Spencer's speech particularly hit home.
Very much feeling of the nation, and that was brought out by the clapping that took place.
Lots of people have come to London, they've laid flowers, they've just said, I need to do something. And we've been able to do something and say our goodbyes and reflect on our feelings about the situation.
The role of President of the Royal Marsden was created especially for Princess Diana in recognition of the help and support she gave everyone here. The hospital says it was a unique role which can't and won't be filled by anyone else.
Many thousands of Londoners who couldn't get to the funeral watched instead on television. Among them, patients at a hospice in North London for sufferers of cancer and AIDS. Diana had been a visitor there on a number of occasions.
The gun carriage bearing Diana's coffin pulls out of Kensington Palace gates, and those near wail their grief. Those who can't get as close still watch, wrapped in the mantle of silence and despair. Mary Donaldson at St John's Hospice in St John's Wood is ill with cancer and severe asthma. She's in no doubt of the impact of Diana's funeral.
I think this is going to change the whole country. It's going to give the country a change. Everybody's going to come together now to show love.
The support Diana had given the hospice was just one gesture among the many she made in her life, and she would have understood that while all else stands still to mark her passing, life and caring has to continue in the hospice. Some staff had joined the procession behind the cortege. They were with others representing the patients from the charities Diana had been close to. The patients themselves and their families battling with their own tragedies are content to watch.
Very sad for young and old, isn't it? I think so anyway. She was well loved.
And those with children think of the princes.
They must be absolutely heartbroken, obviously. But I had difficulty coping with it, actually, watching it, you know, without choking up.
But things do stop at St John's for a minute, that minute when the coffin pauses at the door of the Abbey and all are silent.
I think people will carry that in their hearts for many years to come. But she's at peace now. She can't be hurt anymore, can she?
We return now to Christopher Peacock at Kensington Palace, Diana's London home, which has become a place of pilgrimage this evening. Chris?
Alistair, it has. The condolence books at Kensington Palace will be open 24 hours a day until September the 15th. So many people in the crowd today have spoken to us of the fact they didn't really believe this tragedy until today, that it took the sorrowful sight of that coffin on that gun carriage to bring it home. The capital tonight is still in sorrow, exhausted, I think. It will take a long time to recover.
And there we end our reflection of what has been an extraordinary day, an historic day for the capital.
A day when London said goodbye to Diana, the people's princess, when England's Rose left the capital for the last time. Good night.
Good night.
In a change to Sunday night's programmes, at 9:15 we're showing an Agatha Christie mystery, Poirot.
These are good, the best yet.
What was being smuggled? Diamonds.
Things have been disappearing. You know I could have a word with Mr. Poirot.
Do you know, they nearly arrested me for smuggling. You've come to investigate us, haven't you?
I must congratulate you on having a problem so unique and beautiful.
A mystery to be solved in Agatha Christie's Poirot, Sunday at 9:15 on LWT.
This is LWT, now in a change of programme. Kate Beckinsale, Mark Strong and Bernard Hepton star in Jane Austen's Emma.